I know I do a lot of canned juice shit, but this seems interesting. YouTube. I'm reacting to canned juice's impractical units in the battle cats. This is a year old. I will say this is a year old, so some things may have changed. Maybe his mind has changed or whatever, but I'm gonna react to it.
The Battle Cats is filled with a lot of interesting units. Some are meant to specialize in beating certain traits or enemies, while others can be designed for more general usage.
Hey, buddy, you know there's a little more ground to the stage, right? So that, if somebody has, I don't know, captions on, there's not a bunch of space up here just for nothing down here. Can I move this, please? Thank you. I'll move the captions
Usually,
up.
units that specialize in dealing with specific
I'll
threats
put it
tend
all the
to
way
have
at the
a
top.
lower investment cost than units made for
Yeah,
general
brass isn't
usage.
here.
For
Or it doesn't
example,
belong
a
to be
crowd
here,
control
if it
unit
is.
like Sanzo requires only a few cat fruit for its true form, and then 50 NP just to target angels, and will work fine at level 30. For more generalist attackers such as Dancer, you may want to invest more levels and NP into him, but as a
Mainly
result,
MP.
he will be able to work on a larger variety of stages.
Jesus Christ, man.
One unit that doesn't follow this general investment curve is Maximum the Fighter, or the true form of Viking Cat. Maximum is an anti-red specialist meat shield,
I
but
hate
when at
this.
lower
I,
levels,
I'm
tends
turning
to
off captions.
underperform
Fuck
in
it.
his niche. At level 30, Maximum the Fighter has 26k HP and 1.8k DPS, with a cost of 525 and a cooldown of 3.87 seconds.
Uh-huh.
At face value, these sound like pretty good stats, especially considering he has strong against red. Well,
Yeah, so
as
he's
a
like an anti-red
specialized
meat shield.
Maximum's main flaw comes from his KB count of 3, which decreases his endurance by quite a lot.
Yeah, but like, I feel like it's kind of the same thing as Jiangxi, where it ends up just providing a thicker wall eventually. Like I feel like that's what'll end up happening, right? Is thanks to thanks to the knockbacks, the wall gets thicker and thicker. So I don't think it's really a huge problem.
Let's say you're using him to tank a Professor A, one of the red enemies where
Now
tanking
this is
is
an
generally a
exception.
good idea. After the Into the Future anti-red fruit, Maximum at level 30 and no stat talents has an effective 65,025 HP
At
versus
level,
red
that's
enemies.
crazy stats.
This sounds good, but when endurance is taken into account, Maximum can only take 21,675 red damage before being knocked back.
So
Professor
that's
A
like
at
two Professor A
100% does
hits.
6,800
Oh
damage.
no, that's full.
And when put
Damn.
into practice, you can see that Maximum is not even capable of hitting Professor A once,
Remember, this is
unless
level
timed
30.
well. But even if Maximum lands only a single hit on Professor A, his low damage per hit ensures that it isn't
Hey,
enough.
you wanna know something though? Notice what he's doing here. He's an anti-red specialist meat shield, right? Is this Professor A going anywhere? No. The professor is not going anywhere. Therefore, he is doing his job.
Damage to be meaningful. Maximum suffers from just generally having underwhelming stats,
He's doing
as
his
well as a
job, brother.
KB count that doesn't fit his role.
He's a meat
3
shield.
KB
It's
count
helping
is
him,
shared by the
provide a
island
longer
family,
wall.
but islands are tankier units overall that can reach enemies easier, and most importantly, have better damage. While
They also have
Maximum
single
does have a
targeting.
numbers advantage, when it comes to tanking, a high amount of numbers
Row does exist, but if you use Row, then you can also use Maximum because Row can weaken and then Maximum can actually get hits in. And since he stacks so well, he can deal a lot of damage with a stacked up thing.
won't
So
matter if your unit can't reach the desired enemy in the first place. If a level 30 Maximum can't stand up to a 100% Professor A, it would take an undesirable amount of levels and investment to make him work against even higher magnification Professor
well, he is a
A's,
rare to be fair.
like the 200% ones in All Be Bug, and the even stronger ones in Stardew, or even just red enemies in general.
No Baja Blast.
While he can be a decent answer to Berserkori in the early mid-game, other tanker options like Row exist, which are just stronger and leaves Maximum.
I do want to mention, I don't think he's going to bring it up, but Maximum Fighter is a really good meat shield for Boar. Like a really good meat shield for Boar, thanks to the knockback. Unlike Row, Maximum the fighter will keep getting knocked back after a couple hits, but that'll just since he's so spammable, he'll just continue going back to the front, and it'll be a constant wall. Unlike with Row, where it has a pretty long recharge time, and the weaken's good. Don't get me wrong, but the boar has so much DPS that if something gets knocked back, it's actually better as a meat shield, because then the boar is not just ripping through all the HP super rapidly. So maximum fighter is really good against boars, I will say, and he can actually get damage off.
As an inferior option overall. Looking at his talents, Immune to Slow seems intended for countering the Professor A we named before,
Not really
but
worth it
given
though.
his problems at reaching Professor A, this would only make sense to unlock if he is boosted. While Resist Curse, Immune to Weaken, and Resist Toxic generally don't do too much, and HP Up is your standard issue boosting talent. None of these solve his main issue, except HP Up, which is too investment heavy for the benefits it gives him.
I never use maximum. I never
When
use them.
compensated with lots of plus levels, Maximum the Fighter can actually work and be very strong. Here's Seven's 4-unit one lineup for all of Uncanny Legends, in which he uses an absolute max level Maximum the Fighter. Clearly, this
He works
unit
as a
can do
good
great
meat shield.
things
He has a
at
lot of
its peak
HP. He
potential,
has,
but getting
good
to that
recharge
point
time.
is, well, impractical. Here's another impractical unit, Beefcake.
Maximum the fighter being a rare unit means that he's basically meant to be an early game unit. Which for that purpose, I think he does well. Like, I don't think he's intended for start SOL or late UL. I think he's intended to be for, you know, SOL in its entirety, maybe even like just against pretty much any reds outside of it. Uh, and so he does his job well. Like he's an anti-red meat shield before you get Belly Dancer up to true form where she's actually usable. And he also can provide really good DPS against boars, which a lot of people don't know that Ken's really good early game, so having Maximum Fighter for that can be really nice. And then like Maximum can, like you said, work against Little Neandum, or not even just sorry, I you said Neandum and I was like Little Neandum. No, just normal Neandum. He does work really well against Neandum, just red Neandum. So like in Empire of Cats Chapter 2, or like in that one stage where you have to kill the guy fast, before Courier existed, Maximum was actually great for early SOL Reds. But now that Courier exists, it's kind of like you can deal so much damage. You know what I mean? Beefcake does have a Halo there.
Cat.
Halo.
Beefcake Cat serves as an alternative to Cyborg Cat, which has 11k HP and 600 DPS at level 30 before talents.
Are these
For
including?
comparison,
These are before
Cyborg Cat
talents.
at level 30 has 9.8k
I hope.
HP.
I hope he doesn't underestimate the fuck out of Beefcake here. Uh, it is it's really not impractical units. It's more so units that aren't worth it. It would seem that really is what this is, because like I mean I understand that investment. Like it could just be an impractical investment, but at the same time, Maximum. I mean, it's really like he's good without the investments, and he does what he's intended to do. I'd say without Courier, Maximum is very practical for like early game. Because like most like unless you're getting Uber carried, you're not going to have Crazed Whale and Manic Island super early in the game. So Manic or not Manic Maximum actually works really well there. Maximum's really like he's just an early game, Manic Island because unless you're Uber carried, Maximum is going to be your best strong against red since Manic Island and Crazed Whale are kind of like hard to get without Uber carry. So like you'll probably get those. And then there's also Beefcake, who, yes, he needs investment to be good, but that's just because he's a very generic unit without immunity to Surge. His immune to Surge talents, and then his also being a special unit with talents improves his stats a lot. But like having immunity to Surge gives him a really good niche. But I want to see what this
And
talks about.
1.3k DPS. As you can see, while Beefcake has slightly more HP, his DPS is less than half of Cyborg's. Luckily, Beefcake Cat has talents to fix these weaknesses. Standard 80% boost from attack and HP talents are nice, along with Surge immunity for an additional niche. and a strengthen ability that activates at 1/3 of his max health for even more damage.
Yup.
Compared to Cyborg again, his HP is quite a bit higher, his DPS only a little bit lower, but becomes higher after the strengthen, and with surge immunity now. On
Yeah,
paper,
he's still not that great,
this sounds
but
like it would make him a better unit, and well,
not better than Cyborg, no. But he is a good Surge immune.
it does.
And special. Remember, he is a special unit, meanwhile, Cyborg is a rare. So if there's ever a stage with the restriction of using specials with no rares, so like in Cats of the Cosmos or certain advents, I think, you can use Beefcake, but not Cyborg. Remember that.
Sometimes there's a big flaw. Buying all of these talents for him adds up quickly, and the
That's why you should only get the Surge immunity. Like, and maybe the attack up, but the strength it's not worth it because it only activates at 1/3 of his HP. And the HP up isn't necessary because here he has good HP. He doesn't need more. Like, he's got good survivability already. So the Surge immunity and attack up are really the only two worthwhile, and that's only 200 NP. Well, I say only. It's still expensive, but for a unit that can be used as a Surge immunity spammable area attacker, he works.
cost of maxing out all 4 of these talents totals to be 490 NP. This is quite a large amount for a unit that ends up being average even after these talents. For reference,
But one of the few units, especially whenever he got his talents, to have immunity to Surge. He was, I think, one of the first Surge immune units in the game. So Beefcake versus Yujiro, they're kind of hard to compare since Yujiro has longer recharge time, more cost, and not good immunities. I don't think Yujiro is a good comparison for it.
490 NP, you could use this all to unlock Cancan's double bounty, max out Cancan's speed talent, max out Pizza's wave talent, and max out Cyberpunk's slow talent.
Hence why priorities exist. And if you have the NP, whenever you run into a stage that has surge enemies or a surge boss that you think a spammable anti-surge attacker could help with, use Beefcake.
Any of these, even individually, you could call more useful than all of Beefcake's
Well, no
talents
shit, they're
combined.
common super rares.
And it's not just like there are a few of these extremely good talents. There are quite frankly tons of great talents that are much more worth
True, Beefcake did have a really good top sergeant. They perfectly removed his legs.
investing into than Beefcake. Looking at him as a niche anti-surge unit, this is useful for only a few stages, as his mediocre DPS even post-talents relegates him.
But that doesn't mean he's impractical. Because remember, even though surge isn't a very common thing, it's still practical to have things that are immune to surge. Because like Gato Amigo, Little King Dragon, and Beefcake, all three of those are really good special anti-surge. And I mean, I don't know about Beefcake and Gato Amigo, but I imagine having anti-surge throughout Stardew L or 4-star UL, where there's surge base, there's surging enemies and all that. I think it'll be pretty fucking worth it. And then you can also use them in tandem with like surge units against counter surge enemies. You can't so like I feel like Beefcake would do well there because you can still stack him up even though there is counter surge, you know? So like Gato Amigo means cat friend? I could have guessed that.
To really only beating the Cappy Jr. stages, and maybe a
Underestimating him and his bulk, but whatever.
few 1-star UL stages with surge enemies, like Beyond the Haze.
Well,
This
4-star. Here's the thing, right? He's also one of the few good counters for Cappy, especially whenever he first got his talents. Remember, first of all is outdated. Second of all, Beefcake Surge has been around for a long time, and so there's a lot of newer units that are immune to Surge that can prove to be better than Beefcake and all of them. But I feel like it's hard to forget that it's not necessarily impractical whenever he is still one of the few, especially whenever he first got his talents, he was a part of an even smaller minority. So I don't think it's necessarily that he's impractical. I think it's that he's outdated. So
Is an Orth that 490 NP, and for an additional nail in the coffin, we just recently got talents for Lil King Dragon, who not only has Surge Immunity talent, but has a way better stats, a Survive talent, and a Mini Wave talent.
Not as spammable, single targeting, inconsistent mini waves, and also still requires NP. And also slime, I think it's a level 8 or 9 wave in true form.
I know that LKD has single target and needs lucky ticket farming to reach his peak potential, but even with no plus levels at just 40 and 50 and max talents, he's a strong
And yet you're considering Beefcake at level 30? Come on now.
choice on many stages. And scaling into late or end game, when given those plus levels, straight up makes him one of the best units in the entire game.
I feel like later end game is a little too nice. Even my LKD doesn't have plus 60. So I think it's less so what part of the game you're in and more so how much you grind lucky tickets. Because it's very RNG reliant and it takes a lot of them to actually get 60 LKDs. So just saying.
The competition is simply just too good for Beefcake to have any relevance
Not really. You
nowadays.
can use them together. Just use them together. Like because Beefcake has always area attack. He has spam ability. He's I mean he can work as a ranged meat shield whether you like that or not. I mean it's functional. And then he also doesn't need plus levels. He's always going to be either level 30, 40, or 50. So like he doesn't need plus levels in order to be at his peak. He just needs talents, which is also what LKD needs. And then also, little units don't have the same special buff with their attack up and defense buff. So that the special units do. So that I mean, I think that's something to consider.
And he remains an impractical unit.
Yeah.
Combining the previous two units in a similar vein, we have Bondage Cat, which is both an anti-red tanker like Maximum and a purchasable special cat like Beefcake.
I don't really use
suffers
bondage
from
ever.
similar problems that those two have. As a red tanker, it is outshined by Ro, and not worth investing in, and like Beefcake, eats up quite a lot of NP. Although it is an extremely strong red
Now
meat
this
shield
one,
when
this one I won't argue against because I've never used bondage in my life. So
maxed out with talents,
your talents gains an
even
8 pack, ultra
outperforming Ro
form.
in
Yeah, I
red
know.
only stages. It generally isn't worth getting when Ro takes less investment and works better on mixed stages. Even when it comes to restriction stages, you're better off going for another unit like Dark Laser, who has more general usage than Bondage Cat does. A lot of other special cat talents can also be seen as impractical.
Bondage is good. Like here's the thing, right? They're more so Can Juice is more so arguing like is it practical to invest in them? That's more so what he's talking about. And bondage is not worth it because like there are other things that do better. Like especially with belly dancer. Belly dancer also provides the dodge chance. And so like he can be used. He's not necessarily practical nor is he worth the talent investment. Like I mean, he can be used. Like impractical doesn't mean unusable. Impractical just means it's really not doing anything special. You know what I mean? Beefcake has immunity to search, which is a niche that, is special. And he's one of the few that can actually help out with Cappy Jr. that isn't an Uber. So he actually does provide very good usage there. Therefore, he is not necessarily impractical. Because the best way to spend your NP is on a unit that helps you with a specific stage. If you can't beat a stage, that's the stage you want to use NP on, not some generalist stage, not on pizza to get the wave to just, help you out in black stages. That's not the best way to spend NP. The best way to spend NP is to spend it on units that can bring you to complete a stage that you couldn't previously beat. So
So I think I'm gonna stop talking about them now.
Halucha, that's one stage. And it's also who's Technold again? Who the fuck is Technold? I can't remember. I should have I know I looked it up, but I don't remember. Who the fuck is Technold? The Professor A and The dodge for Belly Dancer is good. You used it before Bondage has freeze. Alien Hanya. Or Hyena, not Hanya. What the fuck am I on? I mean, in that stage, it's not really even a good idea to tank there. Like, don't tank the Hyena. That's. And besides, like, you can just use like even Catalyte in that stage works well because Catalyte cannot be or cannot be warped, and then he has somewhat of enough bulk to tank the Professor A. That stage wasn't really that much of a threat, mainly because I used Thundia though, so I don't know.
For something different, Meta Filibuster proves to be a pretty mediocre option at the point of the game he is unlocked.
I mean,
For
that's
his true
fair.
form,
Unfortunate for
Filibuster
Filibuster,
is a
it
pretty
is
bad
fair.
option that can freeze traitless enemies, but due to a long attack animation, low uptime, and just bad survivability, he just isn't
Yeah, I
worth
do agree
setting
with
up
Filibuster.
into.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand what
Filibuster's
chat's
true
saying.
form takes 1 yellow behemoth gem, 2 red behemoth gems, and 5 epic stones. In true form,
Yeah, it ain't
he
worth.
has immunity to curse and surges, 575 range, and freezes traitless and
He could be
relics
good
for
though.
4
You know, like he is a freezer with 575 range against Traitless and Relics. Like there's probably a lot of stages where he works well.
seconds
Just impractical, you know.
with a 14.87 second attack cycle. This
Yeah,
sounds
Omni
like
would
good
be cool.
support, and while
Bigger
it can
Omni.
be pretty decent at times, his KB count of 1 and low HP holds him back from being too useful on more stages. Now, he could potentially be useful on stages like Beyond the Haze 1-star, where he can freeze Emos and is surge immune to not die from condemned
I hate how there's so much
pangs.
sky in his
But here's the
videos.
thing. You can only get Filibuster's true form after clearing a whole new world, which
A
comes
whole
after
new
UL.
world.
By the time you do that,
A whole
you
new
can,
world I
for a
never
fraction of the
knew.
evolution materials that Meta Filibuster needs, get Awakened Nala, which not only cleans up Beyond the Haze in any star UL, but works on a lot more stages.
However, Filibuster has traitful targeting. Beautiful scene,
Of
thanks.
course, you still can get Meta Filibuster, but a lot of the stages he would be good on would already get shut down by Nala or other replaceable units.
He targets Straightless. He freezes Straightless with 575 range. That's not exactly replaceable. It is not the replaceable that is a problem. Because doesn't his usage against Straightless also get improved in true form? Am I wrong about that? Because getting the true form might be, you know, not worth it, but like this is the wrong one. Filibuster, please actually. Oh wait, sorry. Let me get one. Let me get rid of one of the filibusters real quick. Filibuster. There we go. Why was the fake one the first one? Yeah. So like his overall usage against both against traitless still, you know, becomes a lot better. So yeah, like it is not it is not the replaceability that is the problem for him necessarily because he does have a guaranteed freeze against traitless. It is the fact that his attack frequency, his attack force swing, and all that is still too long for his only 4 second freeze. So it is not necessarily replaceability because he has 575 range. That's not exactly replaceable. Uh, so it's the force swing and TBA that's the
So
problem.
realistically, you would be better off spending those 10 yellow stones on other units, especially given that Ponos adds more and more egg units every single update. Meta Filibuster could have been a solid option to use if he was available earlier, but based on where he is from progression, ends up being rather
Better than Bowler though. Bowler, like you can like at least Filibuster, you obtain him from beating Cats of the Cosmos, and you can still use his untrue form, non-true form version, you know, throughout most of the game. With Bowler, he's obtained it at the fucking end of the game by the hardest fucking brutal boss. And, you know, Bowler would be a great for early game. He would be amazing for early game and even mid game, but you obtain him in fucking late to end game.
impractical, and more of just a collector's item. Our last unit today may be one that is not entirely impractical, but rather just impractical.
You can't
to
say
most
that about
players.
Beefcake?
Super Feline is the final normal cat in the game, unlocked from silver capsules after clearing cats at the
I don't
top.
know. I don't know about Impractical. I know he'll probably provide some good points, but Super Feline is one of the best peon clearers, relic peon clearers in the game. He's also very spammable, which gives him a super good niche as a rusher. He's a good spammable rusher with massive damage, which gives him not just peon clearing, but good chip damage against relic bosses. And so, like, sure, you can say he's replaced by ID or ED, whatever you want to say, but he's really not because ID has a much longer recharge time, and is definitely centered around more bosses rather than peons. So, and
Cosmos
don't forget,
chapter
Super
3.
Feline has Omni.
Unlike any other normal cat, Super Feline starts with a level cap of 20 plus 9, which increases starting from when you reach 10,001 user rank all the way to 15,001 user rank, by which then you
Here's the thing, right? You'll need him for UL, and you'll probably want him for Star UL, especially with the much stronger Sorels. So, like, if you don't have 15k user rank by the time you're doing like 2 and 3 star UL, then that's a progression issue, not a super feline impractical issue. You know what I mean?
reach the cap of a 20 plus 80 Super Feline and can then get its true form. Looking at his pre-true form stats, they are a bit lacking, but do get better
A
with
bit.
more plus levels. His true form gives him an
They
HP
are
buff,
very lacking.
damage buff, and Colossus Slayer, but most importantly, changes
If
him
you're
to
stuck
be
on
a full
UL, I can't
backswing
help you, by the way,
rebound unit,
because I don't know.
which
It's
prevents
been so long since I've actually beaten UL. I couldn't help you if you're stuck on there.
him from rushing in without an attack ready to defend himself. A level 20 plus 80 Super Feline is actually one of the strongest units in the game, both at killing relic enemies and even just as a rusher. On stages like Cosmic Juggernaut Max, he can survive a hit from Super Hippo and deal big chunks of damage to both the boss and clean up the peons very well. Honestly, if he wasn't so hard to unlock, more people would realize that he's an incredibly strong unit. As stated earlier,
He's not
though,
necessarily hard
you need
to unlock. He's just a really good reward to people who play the game. You know what I mean? Because if you play the game consistently for even just 2 years, I'd say 15,000 user rank is very doable. And so, like, just don't play it all at once. Like, if you play it consistently, like, not too much throughout the 2 years. Don't clear SOL in 1 month. Like, take your time with it. If you're playing consistently throughout 2 years, I'd say that you get super feline relatively well, like relatively easily, especially if you're grinding cat's eyes, because you can use cat's eyes to help you get them. So, like, he's not hard to get. He just rewards you for taking your time and actually playing the game consistently. Because you get collab units, you get just new units, limited units. You get all these things, and then you can also do roles on seasonal banners. You can do roles on limited banners. You can do roles that aren't on Fest because you can get the Grandin, you can get the other guys like Professor Cat Jobs and stuff. You can get all of that stuff just as long as you play consistently and don't only do draws on Fest. So like, and then like especially the seasonal ones, and now that brainwashed units exist, there's a lot of good ways to get more user rank. You just need to take your time and not be stupid.
need 15,001
Did
user
I
rank
turn this shit up? No, I turned it up for myself. Sorry.
to allow Super Feline to reach this point, and 10,001 user rank to even start boosting him up. Being an anti-relic, Super Feline's best usage would be in the Uncanny Legends, but most players aren't even close to 15,000 user rank upon clearing the Uncanny Legends. Even some players who push really slowly by today's standards still tend to have around 10,000 user rank at most when they finish UL. And while
Uh, I th- I can't remember what my user rank was at whenever I completed UL. But to be fair, my main account, I played that for like 5 years, 5 or 6 years, somewhere around there. So to be fair, I can't exactly say that most people nowadays would have more than 10k UR. But what I can say is that beating Uncanny Legends gives you access to, well, I don't know. Oh, you know what? Something I just thought about is that there's also behemoth eggs and stuff. Like getting 15,000 user rank is easier now than it ever was. As long as you play behemoth calling stages, as long as you play the advents and get the units, as long as you play the game consistently. Like the longer time goes on, the easier it will be to get 15,000 user rank. So like eventually I feel like Super Feline will not, I feel like he may eventually be obtainable before UL. But at that point the problem won't be so much as the user rank, it'll be having to get plus 80 on a normal cat. That's the hard part. So, like honestly, getting plus 80 is harder than getting 15,000 user rank.
While that
15,001.
is enough to start upgrading Super Feline, they are still 5,000 user rank away from getting his true form, which is where he really shines. This essentially relegates him to be used exclusively for clearing.
He can also, but here's the thing though, he can be used to make other stages easier that you have to re-clear for rewards. So, like, if you struggled anywhere in Infernal Tower, I'm willing to bet Super Feline could probably help out. If you struggle, especially like floor 50 and stuff. And even in Heavenly Tower, there are some relic peons that he can help with in floor 50. So, like, he can help with, like, re-clearing those stages as well.
Star UL, but even then it can be hard to reach that 15,000 user rank needed for his true form. User rank is a
Little Super
mechanic that is
Feline.
increased by upgrading units and becomes harder to increase the higher it gets. Because upgrading more units already means that more are closer or already at their maximum level, this makes obtaining 15,000 user rank very difficult, and basically requires a whole lot of dedicated grinding to reach it. Now, as seen in some strategies, you don't need true super feed.
Hey, by the way, I just want to say, by the logic of Beefcake only being good against like one or two stages, by that logic, Slapsticks is also impractical. But hey, I'm not going to
For
mention that
completely
again.
viable. Super felines with only some boost, say at the plus 40 to plus 50 level, is still a decent choice for clearing out relic peons like Surrels and relic doges in Starred UL, but even then, there are still alternatives that do the job just as good, if not better, than an unmaxed Super Feline. True Super Feline just won't be a practical option in most players' runs throughout the game, and serves as a
Nor is
post-game collector's
Slapsticks.
unit to most people.
Okay, sorry.
However,
I actually will stop shit talking Slapsticks. I'm sorry.
for the few people who play with the intent of already grinding user rank, or have been former grinders in the past that just started playing again, true Super Feline might actually not be impractical. We all move across battle cats at different speeds. Whether finishing
You thought Slapsticks was good? I disagree, but
most of the game in
whatever.
months or years, there are definitely people with that 15,000 user rank that have some UL left over to clear. And at that point, after obtaining the dupes necessary, True Super Feline is still a really good unit anyways, far from being useless at all.
Here's the thing, right? Now that I don't know how far Behemoth calling stages were at the time of the release because this is a year old. No, this is almost 2 years old. Holy shit. What day is it? As of tomorrow, this is 2 years old. That's funny timing. But as of tomorrow, this is 2 years old. So Behemoth calling stages probably weren't fully completed at that point. So there were probably many less Behemoth eggs. There were probably a lot less new units. I don't even know if Behemoth eggs were in the game at this point. No, because Nala was in the game, so Behemoths were. But like there's probably so many new units now compared to at the time of this video's release that I'd say I'm able to confidently say that this is outdated and that Super Feline is officially, not impractical. So
in
he
the
is
end,
practical.
while not an optimal choice for most, with Battle Cat's open progression path and varying clearing speeds, some players can turn the impractical into practical. Thanks for watching.
And thank you, YouTube, for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please do come back for more. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.